Here's a few words with Jesse Bond of Southwest Fire Academy. Hey, man.
Hey, man. How you doing?
Good.
Perfect. Yeah, so I'll just start off with our boot camp for next year. I think we're all full up for this year. And next year we have a bunch in the calendar that are filling up pretty quickly. So if you're looking at taking the pre-service program, definitely a good time to start looking at that. And then the next 3 courses are all with Andrew Broussard and his cadre. So beyond the academy courses, we have Advanced Forcible Entry with Live Fire, November 9th and 10th. And we also have it the following weekend, so November 16th and 17th, but that's going to be in Essex. So for the people that are down south, it'll be hosted there. And we have a machine rescue November 22nd, 23rd, and 24th. That's pretty much it for now. This one is Sean's. This is Sean's episode, right?
It is, yeah.
Perfect. Well, he's an incredible fireman and a big mentor to me, so I'm super excited to listen to this episode.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 93 of Multiple Calls. I'm Scott Hewlett. The choice to not work for the community you live in, or the choice to see your own community and the one you work in as somehow distinct, is interesting. It speaks to a protective boundary placed between you and those you are called to help. A mental delineation made between who you love and care for and those you don't, so you won't be impacted. We can't all work in our home community, and even if we did, we can't be assured we will be called to the scene that our family or friends find themselves in. But the intentionality is what matters. Not your friends, not your family, not your emergency. But why do you allow yourself that boundary and not others? Why the double standard? Do you not have enough love in you for that? Is the risk of the hurt and the journey through processing it not worth it? Did you only sign up to help people in the way and when and how you choose to? We all have our limits. If something has you broken and battered and you need to heal and recover, be assured that your brothers and sisters are holding the line, knowing you will do the same for them again when you are able. Yes, it's harder when you have bonds, memories, and responsibilities with people, but we're all facing that. You need me to care like you would, and I need the same commitment in return. That's what we've signed up for. That's the bond that we have when we acknowledge each other. Let's let that bring out the best in us and shoulder each other through it. Here's my chat with Sean Pryce. Just kick things off by telling me where you grew up and a little bit about your family.
I grew up in Orangeville, small town. Actually, pretty much my whole family's still here with respect to my siblings. Elementary school, high school, went off to college and came back to Orangeville. Lucky enough to get on my local fire department, and that's where I've had my last 24, 25 years in the service.
Well, oddly enough, I guess just to let everybody know, you and I have known each other since we were kids. So I do know some of the answers to these questions, but it's also good for people to just sort of get the details on you that don't know you. But yeah, walk me through like siblings and what the dynamic was with your family growing up and what you're into, and sort of just walk me through your history that way.
Sure. Yeah, I have a twin brother, Mike. He just lives just outside of Orangeville, so we keep in contact quite a bit. I saw him this morning, actually. I have an older sister, Tracy. She lives in Toronto. She's got a nice family down there. We don't connect as much just because of life and jobs and everything else, but we do speak the odd time, maybe once a week.
And what did mom and dad do?
Mom and dad are retired now, which is nice. My mom actually worked for the town of Orangeville for her entire career. She was an executive assistant in the mayor's office and various roles in the town. My dad, he was employed in the sort of the plastic sector. Orangeville was built years ago on, and their industrial sector was more plastics and that type of thing. So my dad worked there for a few decades and then switched over to the construction end and worked for a local aggregate company, local meaning in the GTA.
That was Union Carbide, the plastics place, right? Is that the one where?
There was a few of them, actually. There was about 3 or 4 plastics places. And the one that he started, I think, was Graphic Flexible. And then it changed like a lot of the businesses when they get bought over and over. There's so many different names, but yeah. And then he worked for, I think, a total of 50 years.
Wow.
And with him, I don't think he ever took a sick day, which is really neat. That's maybe where I get a bit of my work ethic from, is my parents. So both hardworking, and they provided well for us.
How was school?
School was good if I liked the course and I liked the teacher. If it wasn't, I think like a lot of the folks in the fire service that I've talked to, if we liked something and we liked who was presenting it or teaching it, we did okay at it and quite well at it. But if it didn't interest me, I'd kind of just scrape by.
And what was your main interest going through school?
More on the tech side. So elementary school interests were just getting ready to get home and go play and build forts and ride bikes and stuff after school. But when I got to high school, it was more of the tech end and shop end, like electrical, building construction, that type of stuff. Wasn't great at math, still not great at math, but all the hands-on type of courses I really seemed to excel at, and it really interested me. It still does to this day.
And what about sports and hobbies?
As a young kid, played baseball and hockey, but found out real quick within a few years that I wasn't great at it and probably never was going to be great at sports. So I started just doing more independent stuff, mountain biking, working for a local bike shop, being interested in that, but nothing really team related after sort of elementary school.
As far as guides and mentors, you wrote back that it was actually a high school guidance counselor was one of the people to give you the biggest push.
Yeah, it was. I would say, I'll use the term mentor loosely, but he did give me the biggest push. I've had a few mentors, and we'll go over that maybe in a few minutes, but the high school counselor, guidance counselor, we got into quite a few arguments, and I was also pretty good at sticking up for myself growing up. I wasn't going to back down from a guidance counselor. I felt they really didn't offer any guidance whatsoever.
Right. No guidance, no counseling. Yeah.
He was just checking the boxes, right? Here's another student coming in my office. I'm going to pretend to listen, and then I'll shove him on his way. And it got bad one day, and he basically told me, you're not going to amount to anything, and you'll never succeed in the fire service. You won't even get accepted through the front door. So, I walked away kind of defeated, but also with a bit more of a push to keep going. And he actually drove me to really try hard and get going. So after college, I ended up getting on my local fire department full time. And it was kind of back then, I was the only one full time besides the chief and the deputy. And I played both roles, suppression and prevention, and went back to the high school to teach fire extinguishers to the staff. And this guidance counselor was there. We met up right away.
Amazing.
And like I said in my earlier response to you, I could have went one of two ways, and I could have met him with some negativity and some sarcasm, but I actually went up and shook his hand, thanked him for giving me that push. And I said, you don't know how much you did help me. And at the time, I didn't think you were helping me, but indirectly, by being a bit of a dick to me, he really gave me that drive to keep going.
What was the first exposure to the fire service that even had it in your head when you went up to meet with him in high school?
Some of my friends growing up, some of their fathers or friends of their fathers were on the fire department. My dad actually played baseball with our fire chief back then. And so I had exposure just to meeting a few of it was all volunteer back then. So it wasn't a busy station, but a few of the volunteers lived on my street. So I would see them screaming up the street in their cars, the green lights or their flashers going, and knowing where they were going. So that intrigued me at a young age. When I was in high school, I had a friend, my neighbor growing up, he got on volunteer in Orangeville and then subsequently got hired on in Toronto. So I got the bug from him. He actually paid me to type up, believe it or not, on a typewriter. I guess that kind of dates us, but he paid me to type all of his recruit homework out, because back then Toronto wanted them all typed up answers and so on. So he would pay me because he didn't have a typewriter, and I would type it, and then just going through some of the notes and kind of getting the academic side of the fire thing. And that was the bug. When I was in high school, I forget, it was grade 11, I think. They were hiring firefighters, so I was banging on the door all the time, and knowing the chief, I bugged him every time I saw him, either with my dad or at the baseball field. They wouldn't let me join the fire department because of my age, and then going off to college in a couple of years. So what they did, I guess they got kind of tired of me banging on the door. And so they said, well, we can't hire you as a firefighter, but we'll hire you to wash trucks.
Amazing.
Yeah, I did a bit of a double take, and I was like, you're gonna hire me to wash trucks? They said, yeah, we pay minimum wage. It's through the town. I said, I'd do it for free. I'd polish your boots for free if you let me in the front door. So I thought, you know what, that was awesome. I certainly accepted that with haste and started washing trucks. But I guess that really was the exposure I got in the door. So I got to meet all the guys going through the equipment, and I probably didn't get paid for 90% of the hours I actually put in there with washing trucks and going through the equipment. I was really fortunate because when I got into college, I did the fire protection program. And back then they didn't have the pre-service programs. So a bunch of us that were in the course really didn't want to be the forensic side or the protection side. We wanted the goon side. We wanted to be the fire guys. So a lot of them would come up on weekends, and later on, once we got to know each other, they would come and we practice at my hall doing hose rolls and hose stretching and going through the trucks and equipment and just diving right into it. So I was really fortunate to have the opportunity to initially get paid to wash fire trucks, but it gave me a lot of really good initial experience and really fed the drive still.
And what about the process to get on full-time, entrance exams, physicals, and how you landed where you're at?
Did a number of those throughout the GTA, just the tip of the bunch of us from school. We just apply around, and I can remember all kinds of people going for the jobs back then. I got through to some interview stages, but really didn't have much success that way. I got on in 1999 as a volunteer with Orangeville, and the same week that I started that job, I started full-time with the town as a building inspector on a contract basis, which led in after that contract ran out. My boss at the time, he hired me on as a bylaw officer. And within a year of getting on both the volunteer and as a building inspector, I got on, there was a full-time position that opened up in Orangeville for fire. There was a prevention fellow that left for another job in the city. They brought in me as a firefighter / fire inspector. And the process for that was basically, I was an employee with the town already, went internal, and I applied for it. I think there was a few other folks that applied for it from the volunteer department, and I was a successful one. Within 2 years of college, I was on full-time in my hometown.
What was the recruit experience like, volunteer-wise and for full-time?
The recruit experience I had in volunteer was good. We had a good group. We had, I think there was 8 of us. My wife and I met in our recruit class, so that was probably the best thing that came out of it. Besides getting on the fire department, we had a really good group, and her and I are the only ones left out of it. The other folks, they went their separate ways. We had 2 really good guys on that course, or in our recruit class, that were on full-time in other cities. And they brought a ton of experience and knowledge, and there's really good down-to-earth guys. So we sponged off of them any tips we could get and any of the training that we did with them. We just really learned a lot from them. So it was a good experience recruit class. When I got on full-time, because I was the only one, there was really nobody else to say, hey, this is what you need to do. Our training officer at the time was a volunteer training officer, so there wasn't a whole lot of time commitment there that they could offer. So they sent me up to the fire college for the recruit program. And there, I have to say, I'll go over a few mentors, but I have to say there was 3 instructors of that in my recruit class. It was a 3-week course, and we had 3 Ottawa guys, older, experienced guys that ran that program, and they were gems of the service. I would really like to see where they're at now. I'm sure they're all retired, but if I can throw some names out, Mickey Stackpole, Dan John Cox, and Peter Boyce, those 3 guys, I can honestly say that they've probably impressed upon so many people just in my recruit class alone, and any other ones that they were involved with. Those guys were legit hardworking firefighters with great attitudes, serious about the job. Like back then, they didn't put up with shit either. You had to march, you had to everything. Like it was a really good experience and strict experience, but man, did we ever learn a lot from them. And there's still things to this day that I carry with me in mind and in hopefully in practice.
I found it interesting in your write-up, and now hearing you say that, you still added in a very transparent, vulnerable way, and like as a lesson for everyone. You mentioned that you still had a few mutt years, so why don't you talk to me about that?
Yeah, like I said to you, I'm not proud of the mutt years, but I'm proud to own it. For a few years early on, I lost interest in the job, I guess just environment, just a downtime. And there was lack of training, sitting around. I fed into it and I kind of lost my drive. And I'll back up a bit. When I first got on, I was keen. I was at everything, at every training thing I could get, course, call, you name it, I was there. If there was a committee, I was on it. And then I kind of lost that drive. I don't recall the actual day or time when I turned it around, but I do recall the feeling. I said, you know what? This isn't about me. It's not about work people. It's not about the department. It's about the people. It's about the community. And my family's here. And I've turned into a mutt. I haven't kept up on my training. I haven't honed my skills in a while. Like, this isn't good. So again, I don't remember the year or the time that officially happened, but I just turned it around and gradually came back and started taking courses again and feeding that hunger that I had once before. And then once I got promoted to captain a number of years ago, I made a promise to myself that I would never let my crew down by getting that allowing that feeling or that environment. I promised myself that I wouldn't let myself down. I think pushing myself every day, and I've mentioned this to the guys at work a lot, like I critique everything. I've always critiqued myself. I haven't had a lot of confidence in myself growing up and through the years, but I think it's been kind of good because it's kept me humble and critiquing everything we do, like every call we do, every training topic we cover, everything we do around the station. I do that at home. I do it in my personal life. And it just keeps me in check. If I can come back from any call, no matter what it is, a routine call or a serious call, whatever, I'll just go over in my mind a little checklist. Did we get out of the gate fast enough? Did I get my gear on fast enough? Was there anything that hindered me? How was my physical condition? Was I huffing and puffing when I shouldn't have been? How were the guys? Did they get the right communication? Did I give them the right direction? And I'll have to say this, I don't need to give my crew a whole lot of direction. They're a stellar group. They really need little direction at all. That's a part of that checklist is, have I, in anything we do, have I met that? Have I got anything to brush up on? And usually 9 times out of 10, there is something that I can brush up on and make better. That's kept me, again, out of those mutt years, and I think hungrier for more. And it is a cliche about saying I love my job more now than I did then. And it is true. Like, I think as we maybe get a little bit older, a little bit more experienced and a little bit better at things, you do enjoy it more. It's hard not to, but I think it's the people around us. Like, we got a stellar crew, stellar group around us, and just the drive. It is a pleasure to go to work. It's a pleasure to do the calls. And that certainly keeps me out of those mutt years. They're in the rearview mirror long ago.
How are you and your crew approaching mentally challenging calls? Your crew, your department as a whole, like, how does it approach mental health and being transparent about how things affect us?
It's really well received as far as talking about things, going through different calls. And I think what helps us is where we are a small department, so we know each other really well. And that's the biggest thing I think we can do for each other, is to get to know the crews, get to know the folks that are working here. So we know them intimately, and friendships, relationships, we can tell when they're not right. We can also tell what's important is what triggers me. If I have a trigger of some sort, I'm sure somebody else there has something as well. So we'll look at signs. We'll try to talk to each other as soon as possible. As far as my own crew, we're pretty good about talking things right away, even during. If we see somebody that might be, or we know that if we get calls that might be a little bit heavy on the mental side, we can maybe switch roles, cover off and help out. We have different roles, as I'm sure most departments run or most trucks run. You have certain roles for seating. If there are some sensitive things that we might want to, hey, I got this, you jump and do something else. So we're pretty aware of each other. As far as what our department does, our training division has done a stellar job over the years with providing mental health awareness programs, different things for our groups to be a part of, including our spouses. there's a lot of things in the past that we've done to include our spouses and our families, because that's important. It's not just us, it's all of our family around outside of the bay doors that get affected too. So super supportive department. The town offers the standard EAP program and things like that. There was a couple of us years ago that were on a Georgian critical incident stress management team. And that was something that intrigued me years ago. Two of the members that got me into it, unfortunately, they've passed on, but they were really good at promoting mental health. And they got myself and a couple of other people involved in this team. And it wasn't until I would say probably after I got on the volunteer end, I had seen like a lot of folks, a lot of trauma in a short amount of time, which isn't uncommon for firefighters. But in that time, I saw two guys my own age killed in car accidents, and just a couple of people in the community that you do CPR on a few people early on in your career. That's traumatic, no matter what and who and how old. But I didn't realize that was bothering me. And then one of the older fellas that was part of this team, the critical incident stress team, he pulled me into the office downstairs in the fire hall. He shut the door, and I kind of knew him growing up as well. He was a local fixture of the community with a local business. So I kind of knew him, and he put his arm on my shoulder, his hand on my shoulder, and he said, "Sean, I just wanted to check in and see how you are." And I said, "I'm fine." I was a 22 or 23-year-old kid, and I was like, I was Superman back then, right? I was on the fire department. Nothing could bother me. 10 minutes after our conversation, I'm bawling my eyes out, and so was he. It was a really good discussion. He made me realize that, hey, you need to be aware of mental health. So I would say it was early on in my career that I was made aware of it. And it was an old school department back then. There was a lot of older boys on the department. But I can honestly say I never felt like I couldn't share my thoughts and be open about calls that bothered. So I think I'm hoping that everyone else has felt the same coming in. I think we've done a good job at it. But that was definitely a defining moment early on in the career, that I was riding fire trucks. I was living the world. I was on top of the world, right? But then this is a vulnerable job. This is a humble job. We're human.
Yeah, and you find out that by letting things sort of vent off as you go, you actually stay stronger and more effective and can make it the distance.
I agree. And I think having an openness in the entire group, especially in your crew that you're with all the time, like set aside all the kitchen table humor or offside remarks. That's all important in its own. But we do have a really good way of supporting each other. And it's just, even if it's just through, hey, I got your back, or let me know if you need anything, or you get together for a coffee or something afterwards.
Have you operated in a training role at all, other than just training with your crew as an instructor? Or
I've been lucky enough to have some really good instructors that have come before me. There's certainly a ton of them. Yeah, I've been so eager coming into the job. I tried to learn as much as I could so fast. And then I found, before you know it, I was actually sharing some information. Yeah, so I've been involved with training a fair bit over the career. Really enjoy it. I think nowadays we're more facilitators than we are trainers. There's some folks coming into the job that, with social media and the internet, there's people coming in with so much information. Maybe you can agree with this. In the training sort of role, you're more facilitating them getting the right info, because they're coming in with a lot of it.
Yeah, you're the filter.
Yes, exactly. And it's a good, bad, and ugly they're coming in with. We just got to make sure they're getting the good stuff over top of the bad stuff. And I've taught at a few other departments over the years. I think that's really opened my eyes up to the service in general, as far as the lack of training that a lot of departments are getting or not getting. I do enjoy being part of the training process, and especially with newer folks, because it is a lot easier to mold somebody that doesn't have the bad habits. But at the same time, it is nice to break people of bad habits if you can.
And talk to me about your quote-unquote love for OFM and NFPA. Sort of how have you been seeing that over the years through different eyes?
Yeah, I've always said, like, all the manuals we get from IFSTA and anything that we've got from OFM, it just scratches the surface. Even now, I think there's a lot of full-time departments that are suffering too, but certainly composite or volunteer departments that make up most of our fire services in Ontario and Canada. I think that those organizations just scratch the surface and check boxes. And at the risk of pissing people off in those organizations, if they do listen to this, there's some good folks, there is some good material there, but they really don't address the issues that we have. I mean, we have a lack of manpower across North America for volunteer departments, certainly in Ontario, from a lot of departments that I know and talk to. And those organizations are basically, and this is just my opinion, my personal opinion, is they're just checking boxes. It's a money-making organization in a lot of cases, in some of those. And they're printing material that's really not relevant anymore. It's kind of like if you're building a house and the engineer gives you the plans and says, I want this done exactly like this plan. That's all fine to say that on paper and when the computer spits it out, but you go talk to the builder on site, it could look completely different with materials, manpower, the whole idea of it. With our department, with the EFSTA, NFPA, cash grabs, in my opinion, with expiring equipment before it needs to be, people get paid when they can put expiry dates on things. They don't look at small budgets. Like there's departments that go without good equipment because they can't afford it, or because they got to replace helmets every 10 years that may very well last 50 years. That kind of stuff, when I have a little bit of negativity on those organizations, I guess that's where it stems from, is they're not looking out for what they say they are. And my big beef that I have with the OFM would be closing up the fire college. Now, I understand there's not a lot of folks that maybe could have got up there, but the ones that did got some pretty good training. And not just the training from the actual instructors or the college itself, but the networking that was done up there was fantastic. And certainly a big group of people that went all the time, learned a lot and brought that back, carried it back to their departments. Some did, some didn't, but a majority of them, I would suspect, brought a lot of information back. When they close that and carry it on, that's a decision the government made. Who's going to stop them? But the answers that they've come up with that they say is correcting and fixing and is superior to the college now with some of the things going around regional training centers. And I'm not slamming regional training centers. I'm not slamming the folks involved, but what they've offered us and said that is the fix and the be all end all is actually destroying the fire service. That's my opinion. And at the risk of ticking people off that may be listening, I really think they've got to take a look at it much harder. And the answer may not be to open up the fire college again where it was, but I think they need to have it more readily available for departments. Our smaller departments with small budgets just simply can't afford to get out and get the training in that they should be.
Yeah, I think one of the most important things I pulled from all that you just said was, it's a good thing for us to reflect on. There's probably good people in these organizations. And I think if we all self-reflect on any organizations that we've ever been involved with, we have to realize that there are good people in every organization that are really trying to do good work and maybe are very frustrated. I mean, it's a common theme of guys talking about how frustrated they are with their departments and they're trying to push things in a positive direction and can't because of the organization's setup. So maybe when we are talking about things like the OFM, like the NFPA, we're not talking about all of the specific people that are there, but it's the system, right? And people are stuck in the system, working for the system. Maybe they're trying to see the long haul and try and make change, but especially when you go to something provincial like the OFM and then NFPA, which is like national or international, how do you move that ship? I think it's okay for us to begrudge or talk about our disdain for the structure of a system. It's like talking about things professionally without taking it personally, because we don't know all the individuals. So it's not an individual attack. It's more of an attack on, hey, the way that this organization or this system is structured and working is not working. And that's our beef. It's not with individual people.
Yeah, definitely. Like it's the system. And I think the system's failing the communities. I think it's failing the firefighters. And you're exactly right. It's not on any one person or any group of people. It is the system. And I get it. There's budgets, there's politics involved, but I think at the end of the day, it's like putting out a fire. There's so many things out and so much information out there to tell somebody how to put a fire out. But is it really that hard? It's water. Put the fire out. There's so many things out there. It's same with, it's like what we're just talking about. The agencies, there's so many different parts of the system that could be tweaked a little bit better. And again, there's some great folks, great people there, probably a ton of knowledge there in a lot of those places. But Are they actually allowed to use it? And well, let's use just a simple fire department for that. Like you said, there's some really good folks. It doesn't reflect on all of them. Some really good people there that are really trying hard and have a lot of info, but they could be at a standstill because of politics or whoever's leading the system.
How much are you using personally and maybe as your crew or your department, the information that's out there now, either social media or YouTube or something like the ULFSRI? I know I sing their praises quite often. How much are you guys using that, what's out there, and having discussions about it and maybe integrating in your practice that you don't necessarily have to wait for your department to officially rubber stamp it with? Because we all know that even the most well-intentioned departments can't give their people all the training that they need. So what are you pulling from that's out there?
We're really open as a crew. Like, I'd be very hard pressed to find a day where one or some of or all of us aren't coming in with some new idea that we've seen or found or want to try. And we're really open to it. Again, there's so much information out there. And when I first started, Windows 95 came out, there was nothing, right? Like, it was so slow back then. But you fast forward to now, there's so much info that if you don't come in with an idea, then you haven't had your phone or your computer on your days off. But we're very open as a crew to try things. And I think we're well known within our department to try new things and to get on the training ground. And we fail a lot, but we succeed a lot. We find new ways to do things, and we never turn down somebody's idea to say, hey, I just thought of this, right? I saw somebody online do this, or YouTube, wherever they're getting it from. We've never been people to say, let's not do that, or that's stupid. We give it a try before we make a ruling on it. And we have been successful in a lot of things, and we failed a lot of things, but we've been able to change things, make things more efficient. That, at the end of the day, if we can make it easier on the people pulling the lines and running the tools and riding the rigs, make it more efficient and safer, we should be doing that every day.
Are there any things that come to mind that you look back on the arc of your career now that you did a 180 on or made a drastic shift on because of something you've learned along the way, where you did it one way before and some new education sort of opened your mind and now you take a different approach?
I've always been really convicted with my way I wanted to do things. I've learned so much from so many different people over the years. I would say that I think as a department, we've done a 180 on the whole idea. And the only example that really comes to mind, I'm sure there's tons of them, but the big example that comes is pushing fire way back when. You put water on the fire at a certain angle, you're going to push it back in. I always thought myself that you put water on a fire, it's going to go out. Yeah, there's all kinds of different factors there that could jump in front of you, but it's a pretty simple process. I think as a department, we did a 180 a number of years ago thinking, no, you're able to put water on a fire and go in through that door instead of punching it through the rest of the building. I think that would be the biggest thing that sticks out, is that we've changed our mind now. One of the things that I have to get used to, and I admit all my failures to my crew as I have them or go through them, I have to rely more on the equipment that I have, as far as, and I'll give you an example, is my thermal camera. I have it on me every time we get a call. Every time we're putting our gear on, my thermal camera's on. But I resort back to my basics of searching by my hands and just my senses. And a lot of the times I'll use the camera, and sometimes I won't. And I have to do my 180 on that, as far as, no, that the camera's got to be, we got to rely on technology a lot more now.
Yeah, it's interesting that you say that, because I think I'm just trying to even feel that viscerally when you talk about it, is that we think, okay, you do it in training, you look through the camera, even on a training fire, you would be using it. Then you get to the real thing. And for some reason, something in your brain says, if I stop and I put this up in front of my face, I'm going to be slow and I won't find the people in time. So you just don't do it and you just search, which actually in some situations could be even slower if you just held it up and had a visual of the room. And again, it's resonating deeply with you when you say that. The more I've chatted with guys at work that are big on search, I mean, we all should be big on search, but I mean, guys are down the rabbit hole deeply that we can learn from, about how quickly even just having that layout look of the room makes things so much faster. Maybe that's the holdup, as you think, if I do this in real time, it's going to be slower. So the thing you need to force yourself to do is to actually take the chance of doing it on a call. I think about masking it with my gloves on too. So drill on it. Okay, you're good in the bay. But when you go on a call, and then this is where maybe the smells and bells calls are the best ones to try and convince your brain how fast it is that if you have to mask up and just go inside for a light haze of smoke, do the mask up with your gloves on. Like, it's a time when you're actually on scene, off the truck, you are in real time, it's not full pressure, but you get a rep in doing it around everybody else, and then you realize, holy shit, this is faster. And then that's almost your gateway into it being committing to it and realizing it's faster. And then all of a sudden you start doing it on real calls. So it's interesting you talk about that. So the tick would probably be the same thing. You would just have to have those experiences of actually holding it up and using it a couple times until your brain goes, oh, that visceral feeling I have or that worry I have that it's slower isn't true. This is faster. And then all of a sudden it clicks and it's a habit.
It does come down to muscle memory. And it's funny you mentioned the glove thing. We're huge on that. We really preach gloves on for everything once they start the recruitment. And that would make complete sense with using the camera on any chance you can get to get that muscle memory in.
Do you get an opportunity a lot to train with it?
We do have like a thermal training program we have once a year. We offer it out to the recruits. Our training division puts it out. Anytime we do search with our crews or we do RIT scenarios or anything like that, one of us has the camera just so we can watch as well. It's good for tool time on the camera, but it's also good to give feedback because we do things as realistic as possible, minus that we don't have a Class A fire training facility, but we do it blacked out, masked out every time we train. So somebody's on the camera, be it the officer or the acting officer or whoever's leading the training that day. So there is some tool time with it. We do use it more often than not.
Yeah, and then speaking about information's out there, I mean, the stuff that Andy Starnes and Insight Training put out is free online, and now even looking how far ticks have come with the new Seek, and a couple guys at work have them, and there's no change from high sensitivity to low sensitivity. It's just a constant gain. You're getting both at the same time, and just seeing in real time how high detail. There were some pallet walls that were built just for some search stuff we were doing the follows the other day, and being in the smoke that we put in there, and then right up to the pallets, like it literally looks like you're looking through a video camera, like I'm looking at wood.
The technology is amazing. And just to go on with the Seek, we just put in a bunch of Seeks in ours, some personal Seeks on some of the packs in our frontline rig, put some bigger cameras in the other ones in a couple of other trucks. We have FLIRs as well. We'd really love to see a standard where every firefighter has a personal camera on them. And it is dollars and cents, but it's a small price to pay. That really opens the doors. And I was at a fire last year that I really kicked myself in the ass for not using my camera more. And huge eye opener. I'd really love to push the fire service to get, I think it's going to save people a lot of time, could save somebody's life just having a camera, just for a quick situational awareness, anything. It's a really useful little tool that takes up very little room on the person. And dollars and cents is literally that. The technology's come so far. It's not that expensive anymore.
There's almost no excuse for using them, because think of how often we have a screen up in front of our face now. Like, you think it would just be almost second nature now to hold another screen up in front of your face and look at it. Like, we do it all day. So
all day.
Why can't we make that leap of again? But I think it's still stuck with that whole, if I stop and look through a screen, it's slow. I think that's really what's holding everybody back.
It's funny. It is a funny way you mentioned to look at it, though. You're right. Everybody has some form of screen in front of their face all the time, all day long. It's that element of change, right? Mm-hmm. To go from doing something one way to another. But really, the individual cameras now they cost as much as a pair of boots, fire structure boots.
I think it's $300 or around that range. Yeah. Anything that you're working towards within your own department that you're pushing that may be new? And then maybe just walk me through. I know you're saying your department's very open to being progressive in that, but maybe if there's anything that you're working on right now or in mind for the future, and maybe just talk me through, like, with your composite department setup, sort of what the process is for instituting change.
Anything from piece of equipment or little things, changes we want to make, we do have a process. Let's say we want a new piece of equipment, a seat camera, personal camera. We can ask equipment request form. And then if we want to change a piece of equipment or a method to how we do things, how we pull something off a rig, we can put in a request form and have our 4 full-time platoons sign off on it, in terms of the captain or the acting captain has to sign off that the crew itself has accepted it. And then from that, it goes to our management team, which is right now we have an acting fire chief who was our deputy chief. So it'll go to him and then for final approval. and yes, no, if it's a new purchase, yes or no, and then where it's going to go. As far as what I would like to see in our department, we spoke a few times around the table about getting an officer development program. So I feel there's a bunch of us that feel strongly that the fire service really doesn't have a great officer development program. And I think historically, if you walk through, well, I'll put it this way, it's like getting a raise on the full-time end. You walk through the door enough times in the year, you're getting a raise. You walk through the door enough, you're getting your sick days, you're getting your holidays, which is great. There's really no accountability for that. You just show up. And I think the same thing has to be said for a lot of the officers that get promoted. It's because of time on, or you've walked through the door enough times. It's like getting that raise. Here you go. You've been here. And that sets us up for failure. And a lot of the officers that are in that are promoted are in over their heads, and a lot of them aren't doing it for the right reasons. That's where I'd like to see perhaps an officer development program. We've got some really good people, but maybe they just need a little bit more development in the different areas, in personnel matters, not just the fireground side, but the station side of things and the personal side of things. So that's one thing I'd love to see. And there's a couple guys on my crew that are really keen on helping out with something like that.
It's really interesting to do. I shared it, I think a couple of days ago, maybe it was even yesterday, of Jocko through Echelon Front giving a talk. And he even made the point of, we see people that are really great in the position you're at. So we talk about a lot about maybe people promoting up that were never good firefighters to begin with. And so now they're even poorer leaders. But the way I love when this happens, but there's this other perspective too. And Jocko was saying that take a really awesome firefighter, right? And he was saying it from the sniper position. So, okay, you have this amazing sniper. They should be leading a team. So you promote them up and you make them the leader of a team. And what he was saying is, just because you're really good at the job that you do does not mean you're going to be a good leader. That was a great perspective. It's like not just being good at the job that makes you then ready to run a crew. It's a unique thing. And he was saying that it's not always, he said, some people have a little bit more of it innately than others, but he was very clear on the fact that it's not a natural, like the whole natural born leader thing, right? That it is something that we do. Even good firefighters need development to learn leadership.
I agree with you. And there's a lot of really good firefighters that'll never be those leaders. That'll never want to promote up or do that role. And there's a lot of good firefighters, like you said, that may not be good at it. To have a good leader in the fire service, you have to be competent as a firefighter. You have to have the experience and the boots on the ground experience for sure. You need to have some failures in your past too to be able to share and answer those questions, the what if questions when they come up. A good development program, and that could also, having a good program could attract some of those firefighters that may not want to be an officer, that could very well be the top officers or leaders in the service one day. It might really be the catalyst to kick somebody's career off that way.
Or they might have the self-awareness of going through the development process and realizing, oh, I thought I was going to be good at this, or I thought I would enjoy it, and I don't. Right? And then just that self-awareness and that's fine, that's okay. It doesn't mean you failed at anything. You're just still awesome at your job. It's just that next level's not for you. And one personal experience really stands out. Like I was just thinking, even just for instructors, just because you're really good at something doesn't mean you're a good instructor. I remember just starting out playing hockey, like house league wise at work. I didn't grow up skating all the time and playing hockey and wasn't good at it. And so here I am at house league and sort of after the game, and I'm fumbling around and fold my ankles in and can't get the puck out between my skates when it's there. And I'm a complete dumbass. I went over to one of the guys that's an awesome skater, and I'm like, hey man, like, do you mind, it doesn't have to be today, but do you mind helping me out with like how to skate? And he's like, oh, I can't teach it to you. I just kind of do it. I don't even know what I do. I just naturally do it. So I'm like, it's just that moment still resonates. Like, oh, just because you're really amazing at it doesn't mean you can teach someone else to do it.
Yeah, it makes complete sense. Like, yeah, everybody's not the same. Nobody's the same at things. And it takes a lot of different qualities and different things to be good at or be okay at to be a leader. And again, there's some people that do it and are good at it, but don't want to be there, so they don't do it anymore. I was in a course a number of years ago, and an older experienced, really well-known experienced firefighter officer in the service. And his favorite role was back on the trucks as a firefighter. He went up through the ranks and was phenomenal at all aspects of the job. And that's not from him, that's from his colleagues. just didn't want to be there. So went back to being a grunt in the back. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. But I think the ones that want to be there, we should have some form of training or at least a mentorship or some sort of program to get them the skills they need, or at least get them introduced to it.
There definitely seems to be much more critique and process in place for recruits and maybe even other roles in the fire service than the most important role in the fire service, which is the captain.
Well, and let's look at it from a teaching point of view. If you're in training and you're teaching and you can't back it up, where's your credit? Your credibility shot. You get no buy-in from the crowd. Same speaks to being an officer. If you're promoted in that position and you don't do anything with it, or you're not good at it, or you don't commit to it, you don't own it, your credibility shot. You've lost your crew. How productive is that crew going to be on a daily basis, or most importantly, at a fire scene? That's where we lose it. That's what it goes back to me saying, I think that the fire service in general has done a kind of a poor job that way. By you walk through the door enough, you're going to get handed this or that. You just got to show up. But we have to make them bring some accountability into that. From our end, people that are committed to the job, we have to own that and make sure we're getting the right info for people.
So without that in place in general, in most departments, what are some avenues that you seek out that information from? I mean, people do talk about a lot of books, they talk about movies, or there's stuff online. What are you pulling from to kind of hone yourself in the wake of not having a lot officially?
A little bit of everything, and listening to the crews. I think just being involved with, put it this way, I'll give you an example. A number of years ago, we were lucky to have contact with a developer in town, and we were able to acquire 4 houses to train in for a period of, it was a few months anyways, maybe even up to a year. We had these houses to play in. It was probably the most beneficial training we'll ever see in terms of acquired structures here in town, just because it comes up very few and far between. But we had 4 houses, and I'm real keen on building instruction, and this offered us a really good mixture of building instruction. We had some Victorian era stuff, some legacy construction, and some modern, and today's construction. And we were able to play and practice in there. Now, I guess it got fatiguing for some folks, maybe a bit of a drag. We were down there all the time, but I thought, you know what, this is invaluable. We gotta put in some reps here, because once these houses are gone, they're gone. We were able to learn so much. So during that time, I know for myself, I was constantly searching up online different things, because we made each of the house a specific house. So we had one where we called it the flow house. We were able to flow water in it. Everything to do with water mapping, hose streams, different types of nozzles and appliances, we would practice in that house. We had a RIT house set up where we'd have a bunch of holes, and we'd make some really gnarly RIT courses throughout this one house to challenge ourselves in and practice different techniques. So we would spend a lot of time researching different RIT techniques and firefighter survival techniques, what to do in this case. And we would practice a dozen different ways to get a firefighter through a hole in the floor. Like we wouldn't just go the standard one way. It was, let's try this, let's try that. What do you got in your pocket? Let's try that thing. So we would exhaust that. And I think all of us did a good job at researching stuff on the side, whether it came from books or talking to other colleagues in the service or the YouTubes or the TikTok, whatever medium you're on. But we did a good job with that. And then the other houses, we had search houses of different types of construction and layouts and floor plans. So I'm open to anything. I'll listen to podcasts a lot. Like, you're doing such a great job with your podcast, and there's so many great people you've had on your podcast that you could learn a lot just from an hour or two of listening a day to a podcast like yours, where you pick up a lot of tips. I'm like, yeah, I'm going to try that the next time I'm out. And I think that's important to find those ones, find the different areas that you know are good quality information, that's good quality information, and definitely share it. I've never been one to hide information or keep information, or if I've made up a plan or a training plan for something, if somebody wants it, yes, here, take it. Let's do it. I've also been one to, if somebody has something that come up, they want to try it. Let's do it. Let's try it. Have you done it? No, let's try it. There's absolutely nothing wrong with trying something. And to go back to those houses, now I know for a fact my crew has at least 6 or 7 ways to get me out of a hole in the floor. So, and that's just one little thing of the amount of stuff we did down there. But I think it's important to pull from wherever you can, whether it is a book, a movie, any sort of social media. There's so many good people out there and so much good information out there that you'd be kind of a fool to not try something.
Do you have any desire to promote farther up? Like, what are your sights for the rest of your career?
I really love the position I'm in. I love the crew I'm in. I can't say enough about the department I'm in. I mean, I think everybody should be the same and proud of where they're from. We'll see what the future holds. Yeah, I think I love what I'm doing now. We'll see what happens in the future. I most certainly don't want to be a fire chief. Not right now at this stage in my career. There really is only one way to go from captain in my department. It's so small, would be deputy chief or fire chief.
Seems like a big leap.
That's a huge leap, but I really am happy where I'm now. And I'm very, very fortunate to have great people around me. I'm able to do a lot. And I think we all do. We have a good voice. Our department's pretty open to allowing us to speak up and have a good voice. So right now I can't complain where I am now. I'll just say that.
In your write-up, and you mentioned it here too, about your wife meeting in recruit class, how has it been both being on the job and talking? Do you guys talk shop off duty, and how have you supported each other, and how do you frame that? Do you get into heated discussions over stuff? Like, what's your dynamic like?
We're very like-minded. We don't shut it off. So to answer your question, like, I'll back up. Before she went into training, she was on the trucks as well, and we were on opposite shifts when we started having kids years ago. And so we were on total opposite shifts. Back then, we weren't 24 hours. We were straight days. And then we went to days and nights. But so we were on opposite shifts just because we didn't want to have childcare and anything like that. So we looked after our kids. I can honestly say, and it's not because she'll be listening. She's not a podcaster. She doesn't listen to podcasts. So it's not me saying this because she's listening. We've had arguments for sure at work and disagreements, and I think it's healthy. But we've always been fairly like-minded and very committed to looking out for our colleagues and our community. And so almost to a fault where it's just never shut off. And I think we've had so many positives from the service, but I guess the negatives would be that it is never shut off. And we do devote a lot of time there, like a lot of other people do. Our kids have benefited greatly by having both of us with the shift work. They've never had babysitters, but I think they've also maybe suffered a bit too, because they've had to share us way more than they should have with the fire service, if that makes sense to you. Having said that, my son now just got on as a volunteer with us. So
amazing.
Yeah, it is awesome. It's a weird feeling because you worry, you have that worry as a parent, but I just know that it's exciting, and I see a little bit of myself in him. And we've never pushed him. We've never been ones to push for this job for the kids. Like, they can do whatever they want. We just very supportive to do whatever they want. We always kind of knew he wanted to be firefighter because he did grow up. He's got tons of uncles at the fire department. So for him to not want to be there would have been kind of odd, but it is very hard to shut off having both of us work there. But it's been a blessing. And I'll tell you, the biggest benefit is when I'm having a bad day, or if she's had a bad day, call-wise or stressor wise, we both know as soon as the other one walks through the door what's going on. So it's been hugely impactful that way, that we can be supportive of each other. She's probably one of my biggest mentors on staying straight, narrow, and safe on the fire scene and the training ground. Her work ethic is second to none, in my opinion, like a lot of folks we have. But I would say she is my biggest mentor that way, to always strive to do well and be safe with my crew.
Do you have that innate desire with your son even more than you would with a recruit that you're not connected with at that level, to download as much information as possible, as fast as possible? I would see myself as wanting to, almost like the Matrix. Like I because I'm worried about you, I just want you to have everything today, and like it might be overwhelming. So how are you balancing that, and how is he approaching it, and is he open to discussing the job with you, or is he more reluctant because okay, Dad, roll his eyes and get it from someone else? So never a prophet in your own home. Is that sort of what you're experiencing? Or maybe talk to me about that.
Oh, there's definitely truth to that. I think by nature kids listen better to people other than their parents. But Yeah, to answer your question, I'd love to give them as much information as possible, but we both have different personalities. We're alike, but we're different as well, if that makes sense. So I give him as much info as I can, but I do know he's surrounded by good people at the station as well. I know my crew, all the crews are very welcoming of any new recruits we have, but he's got a lot of mentors, I think, within the department. And so I'm comfortable with the info he's getting from them. And I'll certainly chip in and chime in. And yeah, I'm super eager to tell him, especially all my failures that I've come up against, that I don't want him to come up. But I also want him to find his own path. And I want him to, you need to have some failures to make those wins that much better, and to have those learning moments never leave. So I don't want to give him so much that it's overwhelming or he doesn't learn on his own. He does have to find his balance, but he's got some really good people surrounding him besides me, and far better than I'll ever be. And so I'll give him what I can, but I know he's in good hands with everyone else.
If people want to reach out and get a hold of you, how would they do that? Not that you have to give your phone number out over a podcast, but if there is some way that people want to reach out and connect.
Yeah, anytime at all through the Orangeville Fire Department. It's pretty simple to get a hold of me. I'm not a big social media guy, unless it's to look up training stuff, but you'll either find me at home or at the fire station in Orangeville. I got to tell you one quick story. The house you grew up in, I remember being in there as a kid. Yeah. And I saw your dad's office, and I can remember that was an impressive office, very neat and tidy. And I saw some regalia there, whether it was a cap and some badges and things. But the funny story, we went there a number of years ago for a fire.
Oh, no way.
Yeah. So I don't know what bedroom yours was, but we were in the back right bedroom for a fire.
Yeah, the back, well, when you walk down the hall, the back right, the larger one, that was my parents. And then my sister was the first one. And then mine was against the back wall on the far corner. Yeah.
So it would have been your parents' bedroom. We went there. Somebody by accident lit a fire in the closet in the middle of the night looking for something with a lighter.
Wow.
Instead of turning the light on.
Yeah. And, at least you knew where you were going.
Yeah. I had a bit of a chuckle over it that, hey, this is Scott Hewlett's house. And I wonder if we'll even know one day if this childhood home was had a fire. It had some good damage, smoke damage and that, but it wasn't a very big fire at all. But
interesting.
Yeah, when you reached out, I was like, I should tell you about that little call we had.
Yeah, wow, what a synchronicity that is, eh?
Yeah, I am still shocked that we haven't crossed paths.
Yeah.
Since, but it's been great catching up with you a little bit. How are your parents doing?
Yeah, they're well. Yeah, still living on their own and carrying on. And Dad's starting to slow down more and more.
I get it, yeah.
But we all do, and they both have all their faculties and still get out and move around, so that's all we can ask for. And
that's so great, yeah.
He's been earning his pension back more than he ever put into it. It's nice to see, especially in your own family, right, that have connected with the service, that have made the most of their retirement. And
yeah, and your dad did a lot.
Yeah, he really put in the years, and then to see him like reap the benefits of it afterwards, it's it's nice.
I really enjoyed your podcast with your dad. That was a nice one to hear when it came out.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
Yeah, I really enjoyed that one.
I mean, each episode and even this one, right? I do try to approach them as sort of a keepsake for each person. And that one had a special meaning as a keepsake for me and for him. And on that personal, selfish level, it's kind of like I want to have this on record, this conversation. And it's really surprising. Like every person, like obviously we've had some time to catch up on here, but every single person that I know or think I know well, you sit down and you focus on talking specifically about them for an hour or 2 or 3, whatever it is, and it's amazing how much more you learn about them. So even had that experience with Dad, there were some stories that I had kind of thought I knew, and then asked about him, and he does the deep dive on it and tells the whole thing. It's just something cool about, that's what I find really cool about this, is that it forces you to focus on, okay, here's the goal of this conversation, right? And we're going to sit and we're going to talk about you, and that's okay. It's wanted, it's desired. We both know we're going into it, so go. And then it's amazing how much more people open up and you can learn about them. So yeah, it's cool that you were able to listen to that and you had that other personal connection to it.
No, it's really neat. And there isn't a lot of people that are able to do that. There was multi-generational firefighters, but I think more and more now as I'm seeing people come into the service, none of their families have anything to do with it, and myself included. My dad wasn't a firefighter, so that would have been a very proud moment for you and your father,
for sure,
to be sitting across from each other.
Well, I'm glad we've connected through this. Like, thank God that this exists. So it's another gift that is given you and me. And it's cool, you're connected with SFA and Jesse Bond being with you guys. And it's just cool how we're all swimming in the same pool, but we're in our own little corners. So hopefully we are able to connect in person.
I hope so. Maybe we'll teach a course together up there sometime.
Love it. That's amazing.
Yeah, it would be awesome. There's a great group up there, that's for sure.
Yeah, it's solid. Really appreciate you taking the time to do this today. I think it's going to be helpful for a lot of people, and I'm glad we reconnected.
Thanks so much. It's like I said in some of my notes earlier, prior to the podcast, was why me? Why would you ask me to talk? But it has been helpful, and I certainly enjoy listening to your podcast, and you help out a lot more than you know.